I last left off with how Dale Carnegie justifies his rules in How to Win Friends and Influence People through a misconstrued version of Jesus Christ and his teachings. Or put another way, where Christ encourages we human beings to fight back against the negative aspects of our humanity so that we can properly love one another. Carnegie teaches us how to play into those same aspects, how to manipulate others so we can get what we want from them. But moving on to a different perspective, I wanted to first bring up Carnegie's own version of just be positive and his reference to Shakespeare. Nothing is good or bad, said Shakespeare, but thinking makes it so. I have seen this same reference used in relation to parallel topics, such as with the loneliness epidemic of recent years, or rather, the fact that millions of Americans are lonely enough that it negatively impacts their health just as badly as chain smoking or high blood pressure. The authors I have read on the matter argue, citing this same quote by Shakespeare, that it is simply a matter of each individual fixing their own thinking. Even though it is an issue that is impacting millions, it is just the individual's problem to deal with, in potential continued social isolation. This echoes Carnegie as well, writing as he did many decades prior. Everybody in the world is seeking happiness, and there is one sure way to find it. That is by controlling your thoughts. Happiness doesn't depend on outward conditions. It depends on inner conditions. And again, Carnegie follows this by and by with a quote by Shakespeare. But where does this line actually come from? It was a Marxist and critic of How to Win Friends and Influence People that reminded me of the context of this Shakespeare quote referenced, both in Carnegie's work and elsewhere, as some form of high-minded wisdom. Keep in mind, I am most certainly not a Marxist, but I will leave any criticisms about economic perspectives for later. In short, the words are from Hamlet. In the article, How to Win Friends and Influence Princes, Dale Carnegie, Shakespeare, and American Political Identity, from Studies in Ethnicity and Nationalism, Volume 16, Number 2, 2016, Professor Kyle Pavetti of Norwich University writes, in the play, Hamlet utters those words to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, just as his suspicions grow about their motives. Carnegie fails to finish the line. Nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. To me it is a prison, Hamlet says in reference to Denmark. Hamlet, in other words, views his life in the claustrophobic terms of the ghost, who describes the afterlife as a prison house. Against all expectation, Carnegie has turned Hamlet into a spokesman of positive thought and gentle accommodation. In that choice, he eschews Hamlet's subversive irony, his melancholy, and his violence. The point is more than valid, and while the article in question here is convoluted, it also, at least at moments, begins to approach the mark in terms of social and political commentary, naturally in the end, only to miss the mark entirely. In some, however, Pavetti argues that How to Win Friends and Influence People was more than a self-help or sales manual. It helped shape American national identity in the early 20th century, drawing on Walter Friedman's Birth of a Salesman, the transformation of selling in America. He explains that modern salesmanship was uniquely central to American capitalism and closely tied to ideas of national character, with mass production and mass selling turning corporate values into political ones. As evidence, Pavetti references Woodrow Wilson at the First World's Salesmanship Congress in 1916, calling for the selling of goods as a political mandate. Quoting Wilson through Friedman, Pavetti writes, and with the inspiration of the thought that you are Americans and are meant to carry liberty and justice and the principles of humanity wherever you go out and sell goods that will make the world more comfortable and more happy, and convert them to the principles of America. More on Woodrow Wilson later. Within this context, Pavetti outlines how Dale Carnegie's book promotes values such as positive thinking and customer satisfaction as defining traits of American identity, and how Carnegie reinforces this by aligning the salesman with revered American leaders like Lincoln, Franklin, and Roosevelt, effectively merging political leadership with corporate behavior. According to Pavetti, his inclusion of Shakespeare further shapes this ideal.
Royal Dane, oh, answer me!
As Pavetti writes, what Shakespeare provides in How to Win Friends and Influence People is a specific appeal to performative bearing for the American salesman, with troubling and unintended consequences, namely political helplessness and an evacuated subjectivity born of capitalist ambitions and the endless creation of a public self. Citing Self-Help Incorporated, Makeover Culture in American Life, by Mickey McGee, and how Carnegie's work and its kin led to the rise of the belabored self, Pavetti continues. In the face of new insecurity facing American workers in the 20th century, one must constantly work towards self-improvement. The paradox that follows is the same running through Carnegie's sincere flattery. Appearing authentic while conforming to external values produces for the self-creating self an endlessly contradictory task of reconciling incommensurable values. And concerning Hamlet again, Pavetti adds, Carnegie uses Shakespeare to legitimize not just corporate culture, but also a helpless political identity. As McGee writes, self-improvement culture, as it actually exists, derails the opportunities for individuals to understanding injuries or grievances as part of systematic social problems. Again, keep in mind that the immediate context for Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, published as it was in the 1930s, is the Great Depression. And while the American socialist and Marxist are often guilty of filtering every problem through a social lens, it would be difficult to argue that the Depression was just a matter of personal, individual responsibility, as social critics and political commentators on the other side of the political spectrum often view social problems. In other words, there were clear societal-level issues at play here, but more on that later. As Pavetti finishes, when it comes to Carnegie's Hamlet, one can only accept the corruption, knowing that argument, intervention, or organized protest never work. The American public is reminded to stay positive and that nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. The usefulness of protest is disputable, especially if you are a group that is not at the outset already backed by powerful elites. The more you dig into this possibility, the more apparent it becomes. But regardless, what I believe is most important to battling the ideas of Carnegie and his ilk is how we treat each other on a person-to-person basis. And this is not a matter of economics. It is not just a matter of you just being personally responsible for you either. But as I have said before, it is a matter of being personally responsible for each other, as neighbors, friends, family, and loved ones. And this is far removed from possibility with the collectivism of Marx. With Marxism and socialism, you are expected to reject not only your own well-being for the greater good, but the well-being of those closest to you as well. But I will continue with that discussion next time. I hope to see you there.